I know I said there wouldn't be a video this week, but I managed to find a few hours after a disastrous day on the wheel to edit and narrate this. It's safe to say that not every making session goes according to plan, and I find more often than not that the really bad ones occur when switching to using materials that you aren't particularly used to. If you didn't catch the throwing of these, that was the subject of last week's video. It showed that process in full, whilst also discussing the traits of porcelain that make it both an incredible clay to throw with and one that can be really demanding and unforgiving to work with. And I'll leave a link to this video on screen now and in the description below. But for the time being, we're catching up with the process the day after these pots were thrown. Clay takes time to turn leather hard, whereupon it can be trimmed, but I find porcelain tends to dry out even more quickly as compared to say stoneware, such as the bowl on the right here. But the other difference is that you can actually trim porcelain when it is a touch on the hard side. Albeit a dusty process, it still works in a way that turning stoneware wouldn't. These vases were more or less ready to go, but they just needed the soft edge taken off them, so I left them upright for about half an hour and then flipped them over. This way their thicker bases have ample time to dry out. It's really easy when making pottery and posting about it online to only show the very best of the objects you make, as obviously you don't really want to share the failure, as I think it's many people's intentions to convey just how good a maker they are. It's sort of unspoken at times, but to some degree there is a level of competition, and after experiencing this craft for 15 years, in numerous ways, be it apprenticeships, pottery fairs, selling online, and working with galleries and doing exhibitions, you'd be shocked by just how much criticism there is between makers. And I think it's partly for that reason that the videos I started posting years ago that showed my genuine failures performed so astonishingly well, as it conveyed, simply, that we are all human after all, and we all make mistakes. Anyway, you're going to see a lot of failure in this video. I wish this wasn't the case, but the truth is, even with thousands and thousands of making hours under my belt, I still have really terrible days at the wheel, and I feel just as frustrated when I ruin something as many of you do. As you gain experience, failure tends to happen less and less often, and that's what made this trimming session so frustrating. As say with my normal stoneware, if I'm trimming cups or mugs or vases or bowls, I'll probably destroy about 2 out of every 100 pieces I throw, whereas with these porcelain vases, I've ruined more than half of them, mostly through faults of my own, by either trimming them too thinly, the vessels themselves coming loose, or attempting to turn them when they're a touch on the soft side. I suppose the thing is, with the high iron pink stoneware you normally see me work with, I'm so used to the subtleties of that particular clay body. I can easily identify when it's too soft, too hard, the wool's too thick, or too thin. But when working with porcelain, which as a clay body is so different, many of those goalposts are moved, and the material simply has to be worked with in a different manner. My ambition with these vases was to turn them to be really thin so that the clay itself becomes very translucent once fired. And perhaps the most common mistake you'll see when turning pots is simply trimming the walls to be too thin, and that's precisely what happened with this piece. This is frustrating, but it happens, and often it can have quite a lot to do with the internal shape of the pot itself, as if the inside shape is slightly irregular, you can't necessarily turn the outside shape to be perfectly straight without creating a thin spot or a thick spot. That's not what happened with the last vase, I simply just turned it too much. But for a long time this was the reason I was trimming holes in my pots, back when I was learning, due to the inside shapes of my pots being inconsistent and uneven. You can see here that the porcelain is on the harder side. The turnings tend to come off in these small shards as compared to the long ribbons that trimming stoneware often creates. Now, the issue with this vase is that I left it too thick initially. This means that if I did trim it back to the point where the pot was nice and light, the shape wouldn't be anything like what I intended, as I've simply had to turn away too much material from the tapering bottom of the vase. This means the vessel just doesn't match what's in my mind's eye, and ultimately the base will be too narrow, unstable, and a bit too exaggerated. What can also happen if you leave the base of your pot too thick is that you can try and trim down from above to remove much of that excess weight, but in doing so, you actually end up making the pot much shorter than it could have been. Of course you can trim a footwell to get around this, but you don't want to trim pots that have flat internal bases, yet with abnormally deep feet, as visually, when the pot is upright, there may not be much of an issue, but for anybody looking at and handling the pot, especially a potter, they'll notice a real discrepancy on the underside, and a clear indication that the pot itself was thrown with far too much material in the base. You can see how much I turn away here in order to make the base thin enough, but in doing so I make the bottom part too short, and again diverting and changing the vessel from what I had intended. and sometimes you don't always see this immediately. In fact, I had to take this pot off the wheel first, trim a few more pots, and then, after seeing this one alongside all the others, I knew that visually this one stood out. So it's a good opportunity to slice it in half in order to see the cross-section, which in this instance was still all a bit too thick. And that's my fault for not initially pulling up a tall enough cylinder before shaping it. Yes, the walls are nice and even, but for this stuff, porcelain, I'd probably be aiming for about half this thickness overall, especially for a shape that doesn't have walls that overhang too much. But from this angle you can at least see how the interior walls themselves are much straighter and have far less throwing rings in them. Okay, I think it's time for a successful piece, I hope. So I'm going to take this one much more slowly, clean up the interior shape from the inside, especially towards the top, where the clay work will be most visible. I tend to turn it away at first with a loop tool, and then I flatten and smooth this surface with a firm mud tool's kidney. And lastly, I soften and smooth this area again with a wet, dense sponge. This creates a really flat, even finish. If, after a bit more trimming, I feel like the rim has become a touch misshapen, I press a very round bowl into the opening, like so. Thereafter, I use straight-edged metal scrapers to flatten and straighten the outside angular shape even more, whereupon the pot that I stick to the wheel head using slip can be sliced off, the pot flipped upside down, and the underside and the foot ring properly finished. Having watched all this footage back now, I can't tell you just how humbling it feels to see so many muck-ups in a row. Mainly as trimming pots is such a large part of my practice. It's probably, arguably, what I'm best at. Better than throwing, glazing, pulling handles, making spouts, the lot. So having so much failure in a process I should feel really comfortable with feels both surprising and pushes me out of my comfort zone, which honestly is probably a good thing, as despite doing so much trimming, it's good to feel like you're still learning something occasionally. And that's the thing with this very smooth, very dense clay. Yes, I'm trimming it more or less in the same way I do the stoneware I trim, yet there are still so many other small subtleties that have to be addressed. The razor-sharp tungsten carbide tools I use can sort of rip and tear the surface of this stuff as I work, creating a rather rugged, torn-away looking layer, which isn't particularly the finish I want. Hence why I tend to use these steel turning tools, which aren't nearly as sharp, to do the final pass over to create a crisp, smooth surface. At the same time, when working with clays that are incredibly smooth, any small scratch or defect on the surface shows, glaringly so. Whereas with the stoneware I use far more commonly, which is full of specks of grog and coarse material, you're inevitably left with a surface that is quite rugged and pockmarked and scratched, which means you don't have to focus so much on the small individual irregularities on the surface, as to some degree that's just the nature of the clay, an inseparable part of it. Whereas with very smooth porcelain, you almost have to work harder to retain this smooth, glass-like finish. I enjoy this hard work though, and as clay types go, when you catch it just at the right level of dryness, it's a beautiful material to trim, as the blade just sinks through the porcelain with such little effort. I know I mentioned this a lot, but one of the reasons I love trimming with my work the right way up, like this, is that I can feel the cross-section of the walls as I'm turning it. Typically though, you trim pots upturned. In fact, conventionally, pots are trimmed entirely upside down, in such a way that you can't really feel the cross-section at all. This is generally because one approach to making pottery is that 90% of the making of a pot should be done at the throwing stage, whereas the trimming should only account for a small bit of tidy up at the end. I obviously trim more than that, and I'd say it's about 60 or 70% in the throwing and 30 to 40% in the trimming. And many of these particularly angular, sharp shapes can be very tricky to throw entirely without any turning, and sometimes it's simply easier to leave the pots on the thicker side, especially on this lower tapering section, before doing much more of the finishing at the leather hard stage. Now, at the same time, I had a ceramics education and apprenticeships where I was making pots that were 95% thrown and only 5% trimmed. In fact, I made thousands of mugs at Maze Hill Pottery where the base was just rough thumbed, as we called it, where the sharper bottom edge was just softened and rounded with a thumb when leather hard. And I'd recommend to any thrower who's really serious about gaining a high level of skill to make pots like this, or at least to be able to for a certain set of shapes, as it teaches you the basics and really forces you to throw lumps of clay to their fullest extent. At the same time, this mindset isn't applicable to every genre and aesthetic of work, and there are some shapes that simply require more trimming. Yet, if trimming your pots is always a crutch you use in order to make them light enough, then that's not necessarily a great thing, as you're limiting your potential skill. I don't think many people realise how thin I turn many of my pots. Not all of them, but many of them. And things like the mugs and bowls I make many hundreds of are thrown to a point where they could just be left as is. Yet if I were to coat these pots with the thick layers of crackle glaze that I often use, then they end up actually being on the heavier side. And this is why you see me often trim my pots quite a lot, as I want to end up with objects that are light and have a thick glaze. And as it turns out, this can be a really difficult balance to strike. I'm sure all of you who've made pottery know how frustrating it is to have successive failures like this. It often gets to a point where you actually just have to stop. Otherwise you can become too infuriated with yourself. And typically, if I find this is happening to me, say if I'm throwing pots that I keep destroying, then I tend to settle back into a task I know I can do without constantly wrecking everything. This can be throwing very simple mugs or bowls, shapes that I've made so many of that they're sort of ingrained into my muscle memory. Or I'll switch to something else altogether, such as taking some new photographs of my work, filming, writing, or just tidying up the workshop, which is always a good way to blow off some steam. You'll often see me sponge the rims of my pots just after they've been trimmed. This is to smooth the porcelain after just being upturned on the metal wheel head, and hopefully this gets rid of any burrs or scratches there might be in that delicate edge. And here are the 3 pots I ended up with. They're incredibly light forms, and compared to the older versions, they're taller and more elegant, and now all that's left is to attach the line onto one face of these. This gives the pot direction. It doesn't really have any functional use, and I simply create a coil, roll it out, which I often do with one of these glassy smooth bats to create a coil that's really even and smooth. These are then scored and slipped onto the body of the vase, and it was at this point that I could sort of see another failure coming, as I think the bodies of these vases had dried out far too much to have any sort of appendage attached to them. But I persisted. I pressed the coil on and worked it into the body, and over the course of about 10 minutes refined it into a sharp, protruding edge that sort of mimicked the finesse of the rim. Like I mentioned towards the beginning of this video, porcelain often dries out much more quickly compared to stoneware, and you can see how the vessel itself is beginning to whiten in places. This is a clear indicator that it's becoming too dry to attach anything onto without running into issues. But sometimes during the process itself you're sort of blind to these things. So I kept going, kept refining, and obviously if you have warm hands, the more you handle the pot, the drier it gets. And after lots of carving and really fettling that edge to a very delicate, sharp point, it just, well, cracked off. And it was at this point that I called an end to this making session. We've all been there. It never feels great, but this happens to everybody. Believe me, we all have good days and bad days, and whilst I do feel a bit disappointed as I didn't end up with the group of pots I wanted, I think it's better I stop now before I ruin any more, and I can always come back and tackle this again on a day where I feel perhaps less rushed, or after working with porcelain for a week, so that I feel a bit more practiced and understanding of the material I'm working with. For now though, I'll dry these slowly beneath plastic overnight, and in fact, as soon as I finished filming this, I got ready to head off to the airport for a long overdue holiday. Anyhow, that's all for this week. Thank you so much for watching me ruin a bunch of pots. I hope there were some words of wisdom to make it all worth your time. And, as always, I'll see you in the next video.